Un saluto a tutti, io sono Simone Mariam di Mid Dolcino. Insieme a me condurrà l'intervista anche Marco Rocco, ingegnere e contributore del sito ed esperto di energia e geopolitica. Oggi voglio presentarvi un ospite di riguardo dalla Gran Bretagna, la professoressa Valentina Zharkova, professore emeritus presso la NorthUmbria University. Hi, Professor Zharkova, how are you?
Hi, I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you. Welcome to our program, and thank you for having accepted our invitation. We have read your studies. Our engineers, including Marco, have evaluated the paper you have done. If the conclusion report are true, the global cooling, the consequences will be very serious. As we said before, our aim is to provide real information, which the traditional media have not wanted to do. Having said that, I would like to open the interview by asking you, at the RAS in 2015 in Landluno, the Earth's temperature was predicted to fall from 2020, an event that has punctually come true. Were this extrapolation relative to the model published about 5 years later?
Yeah, the paper was published 2015 in Scientific Research, Nature Scientific Research. So it came out, we calculated the principal components of magnetic field variations in time and in latitudes. And this came up as real eigenvectors of the sun. So this came up like real oscillations, which came from magnetograms of the sun. So it is not like we invented, we were sitting and looking. No, this is what we extracted from the data. Later on, we added to this extraction, this curve classification with some mathematical formula, which allows us to predict this forward and backwards. But original data are extracted from the solar magnetic field. This is why it gave pretty good prediction, because it turned out that we were very lucky. We were cycle 24, end of it, approaching this grand solar minimum which was upon us, literally here. So this, because it was so close, this is why the prediction was so accurate. So the only thing I can say.
Definitely. Tell us about your climate model based on solar activity. Are there data that the public should look at to see how the Earth's temperature is moving without falling for media propaganda?
Yes, there are a website on the NASA sites given the temperature variations. Also, there are papers by Lean et al. 1995, and some book by Easterbrook. He wrote, after we reported in 2015, he published a book showing that they did investigation of temperature variation back to the Maunder minimum and shown decrease of the temperature during every Dalton minimum and every other minima, and they show how the temperature decreased. So we use these charts, actually their charts, to discover that the temperature decrease during grand solar minimum will be up to 1 degree Celsius. It's average temperature decrease, which means it is average over the years. So it maybe will be stronger decrease, because it means that you have less radiation, will be less heating of the atmosphere. So this is where we took the data. So data fully available. Each observatory has this data, and people summarize. If you type on Wikipedia temperature, they will give you links to a few data sets.
Maybe if you can provide us some data, some sources of the data to be published on the site, it would be very, very interesting for the reader to have some references.
Okay, yeah, I'll take some data from the chapter, which are published in the chapter showing the temperature, where we took why it is 1 degree decrease, and I will send you the files.
Okay. I'm taking the drive. Basically, I've read, an interesting book that is written by Professor Bernard Levin, searching for the catastrophe signal, Global Warming Policy Foundation. Basically, there are a lot of criticism on the IPCC model that were clearly stated in this book that is definitely an essay, not really a book, easy to read, but it's something that you should know how to read. But basically, what we have realized from that book is that possibly there were also some efforts to increase the temperature on a man-made level that were taken in the last, for example, 20 years. But which is your idea of the IPCC model? Because I would like to have your opinion about that, especially for the CO2 interpretation as a global warming, body, okay?
Well, I have to say that I was puzzled with IPCC model, especially after they retracted our paper on the basis that the solar Earth distance doesn't change and the heating cannot come from the sun, because in our next paper, 2019, we found that because sun moves closer to the Earth orbit in March, in the location of spring equinox, it brings more heating in the month February until July, which means the Earth should accumulate more heat in the ocean and atmosphere before the Earth goes into other part of the orbit. And this extra heating, we assume, could cause the global warming, at least big part of it. And this when anthropogenic global warming people become very upset and started chasing us. And I needed to look why they're so unnegotiable. And this probably brings me to the same conclusion like the author you said, because what I discovered, they didn't have this extra heating because they didn't know it did exist, or they didn't want to explore any orbital motion. What they wanted to have some heating, and they added by hand this extra heating from carbon O2 by using incorrect. What I discovered that if they didn't use the correct heating, they needed to find incorrect reason for some extra heating from the atmosphere, because I know the heating comes from the sun. So how do they produce it? And it turned out they use this carbon spectral analysis of the atmosphere, adding many elements, interaction and everything. But what they did not consider properly was the radiative transfer in this layer. So they use only 2 layers, but many molecules, which while I did my PhD in radiative transfer, unlucky for them, it turned out that it could not happen. And many people actually noticed it. It was a meeting in Portugal of the planetary people, and I took slides from that. They discovered that optical thickness of CO2 emission, which they assume is bad one heating the planet, is actually 400, while in reality, any layer can only emit from the optical thickness equal 1. So everything which is below 399, we cannot see because the intensity is saturated. So how on earth these guys can say that adding more CO2 increases the emission if it becomes saturated? So this is how I found error where they done it. And now we understood how they manipulated. So basically, they substitute real radiative transfer with a thin layer, and this is how they add more CO2 and get higher emission. Well, in reality, this emission is saturated, and they cannot see it. So this is what we discovered. Therefore, I would agree with the author of this book. They were desperate to find the resource. They found it based on most people do not evaluate or do not understand. It's very strong mathematically defined theory of radiative transfer, and it is difficult. So they realized they wouldn't catch it. Maybe they did not understand themselves. I don't know. But given that planetary people, they already put in their slides 3-4 years ago, so they knew this is happening, they didn't listen to them because they were saying, oh, there is no other source. If you remove this one, what will be hitting? And suddenly in 2019, we came and said, no, the source is the sun. The sun moves closer to the planet. This is how. So this is how we click up. We found the source and we found where they made the model working in properly. So this is what happened.
Yeah, okay. No, it's very clear to us. Basically, we have read through your model. We are looking forward to have a look to your book that we're going to present to our reader, our blog. But we have realized that that we are going in a direction of more cooling possible. Okay, just for your information, just this year, the highest observatory, the temperature measurement system in the Alps, that is the Capanna Margherita, has experienced a very limited number of days with temperature above zero. That should possibly at 4,600 meters, something like that. So this really is consistent with what we are saying, that the heating is coming from the sun and possibly from above is decreasing the cooling temperature, and in some years we will reach the sea level. But there are other professors that are sharing your view on cooling factor, what we should expect a cooling environment in the next few years, that the people that might have the same your opinion.
Yes, NASA now is claiming the full blown ground solar minimum. They're also saying people, I've seen paper by Kitiashvili who used the same data. It came to the same conclusion in Astrophysical Journal 2020. This year I had a couple of other guys, Emerito from Russia, who repeated the result obtained. And then another guy from Mexico, Velasco, and soon they used sunspot data and also obtained that it will be ground solar minimum coming in the next 3 cycles. So the guys forget to actually cite us, but they come to the same results. So what we do, we cite them in our next paper saying, yes, we are happy that you confirm in our result. Thank you very much. This is what we would say. And it confirms basically that it doesn't matter that the sun came to us. If the sun is the main source, reduction of its activity and reduction is solar irradiance coming from the sun to us still has upper hand and reduces the temperature on the earth, because the sun is not any further as it was before. A few 10 years ago, it is nearly there because it is a 1,000 year difference. So it is not big difference between 20 years. So the sun is on the same distance, but the fact that the solar activity is reducing on the sun and the temperature is decreasing because of the reduction of this confirms that the only source of the energy in each planet, including the Earth, is the sun.
Yes,
absolutely.
Basically, what we realize is that there is a geomagnetic effect. Your theory is based on geomagnetic effect that really implies an effect an influence to the Earth. Do you feel today, in these days, we are seeing a lot of eruption, volcanic, seismic activity in the world? There can be some connection to what we have discovered and what's happening in terms of seismic activity and eruption and so on?
It's very good you ask the question. I started working with my colleagues from Ukraine on looking at seismic eruption and volcanoes, and we discovered that indeed volcano activity increases during solar minima, and especially during minima which are achieved when the polarity of background magnetic field on the sun is southern. So basically we are approaching to the increase of the volcanoes in the last 5 years or something, and it will be much more dramatic increase in 5-6 years when we come to the next solar minimum, because the polarity of the sun will be changing to the southern and will be maximum. So will be eruptions and the pollution of the atmosphere with ashes. Imagine how much CO2 they produce, will actually reduce the temperature additionally to drop of the radiance from the sun. So this is the correct thing. I have to agree.
Okay, it's an interesting question. Then the last question, we have read basically a paper, a recent paper by University of Arizona, Kat Folk and Renu Malhotra, about some strange behavior on the Kuiper belt that is a belt of small planets that is in the solar system, separating the near, you know better than me, but the near solar system to the further solar system. Basically, we were puzzled about the fact that it seems that many planets in the solar system are experiencing an increase in superficial temperature. We don't understand if it's for real or if there is everything is connected, or we would like to have your idea about this, because we have realized that possibly it's not only the Earth that is going to suffer this situation in terms of solar effect, but it is true, for example, that the temperature, the superficial temperature in all the solar system has increased in the last 10 years.
Yes, would I say the idea is that in each planetary system, the planets are moving around the barycenter. So it is, you know, the planets have ellipse as an orbit, and the sun or star, and it sits in one of the ellipse focuses.
Mm-hmm.
But it turned out this was the simple Kepler law. He described all the three laws. But later, Newton discovered that gravitational force of large planets actually squeezes or moves the sun from its sitting inside this focus, and the sun starts moving on much smaller orbits. So the planets and the sun, they all move around the barycenter of the whole system. So they have feedback from the planets, which shifted the center around which the planets and the sun moves. So this is the basis of why the sun, which, as I said about the Earth temperature, moving in the current millennium, it moving closer to the Earth's orbit in the position of the spring equinox in March, which means the other orbits of other planets, they still will be closer, despite their different distances. They will be in the same positions, but they will be closer to the sun at the same time, which means they will have extra radiation like we had, it will some increase of the temperature, and it's been recorded. It's been recorded there were melting ice caps on Mars. It's been reported, and I have plots confirming this. There were typhoons in Jupiter in the past few decades, which never been recorded in the previous decades, so on. So obviously it works for other planets as well. And definitely this confirms that it cannot come from tiny planet Earth, because we are not so powerful to influence other planets yet. So it has to come from the central star.
Yeah. So basically, it's not that we have forgotten our SUV in Jupiter, you know.
Yeah, exactly. It would be nice to feel ourselves so powerful. It is like a sci-fi. I guess the people who develop AGW, they seen too many sci-fis. They want to be the savior of the planet and whatever. But
no.
We have the savior already. It is our sun.
No, it's very, very interesting. Thank you very much. I think that we can go further in detail in the next meeting, because
Marco, I have a last question, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Yeah, Professor, in which areas of the Earth will it be possible, this possible cooling be noticeable? In the northern or southern hemisphere? And where in Europe will we feel it most?
It is difficult to predict. The only investigation been done by Schindler in 2001. He investigated how the global cooling during Mount minimum was distributed over the planet. And he found that indeed the most cooling was in Northern Europe, in Northern America. Somehow the Northern Hemisphere is more affected than Southern on some reasons. So this is what they discovered. So would I assume that probably it will be similar, because what is happening, you will find in my book that the distance between Sun and Earth is decreasing when the Earth in aphelion, so when we have the summer, but it is increasing when we have winter. So it means that we will have much less radiation at the Earth when this Earth is in perihelion during Mount minimum, which is much further than it was before. This is why the Northern Hemisphere will be most affected. This is my anticipation from the paper of Schindler, 2001, they published in the Science. So if you can do search, you can find his, and he had very nice plots showing with the color where the temperature. So this is the only research was being, nobody did any forecast for the future. So I don't know other, but I found this one and I thought it's better this one than nothing.
Absolutely interesting. Marco, you want to proceed?
It's okay. It's okay.
Okay. So we didn't talk a lot today about CO2. Would you be willing to have another meeting with, for example, the Italian professor Zappalà? Because we would like to organize a talk between scientists on the effects of CO2.
Yeah, why not? I can speak with the professor. Is he planetologist?
Yes.
Is he supporting the anthropogenic global warming?
It's not precisely his speciality. He was contributing to our side before, and the idea is we have two main topics. One topic is clearly the CO2, but is how can I say it? Stiff, because I know that there are a lot of politics behind. A much more interesting point of view would be to understand the strange behavior in the Kuiper belt, okay, that has been recorded in the last years, and this the paper of University of Arizona are really telling in this term. So possibly we could try to explain something about CO2, but on a planetologist point of view, there is a lot of discuss, okay, because maybe this could be really the next topic, if you like, the idea.
It is, and may I say that astrophysicists who are not concerned with what's happening on the Earth, they know very well about these solar inertial or star inertial motion, because they use this effect to look for exoplanets. Only the stars which have wobbling radiance, they confirm that they should have the planetary system. So this is one of the key points how they search for exoplanets. So really planetary effect is very important. And I learned this only after we published, and they crucified us literally for the year that we done wrong and so on. And my progress in planetary physics was very dramatic. So this is how we go through and came up to ephemeris and everything. So I would say it would be useful discussion.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So thank you for all the information you provided us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It was a great pleasure to speak to you.
Have a nice day. Thank you.
Bye-bye.